Hi, Duncan here again. This is the 8th video in our series of how-to videos in which I'll walk you through the process of commissioning your safe2tow system using our brake monitor app. To help this process, we've created a commissioning checklist that you'll find on the downloads page of our website. The intent of this checklist is to provide a series of inspections, tests and checks that you can perform to make sure your system is installed and operating correctly. By completing this checklist, you'll also establish a baseline for the operation of your system, which you can refer back to at any time when performing maintenance or investigating a change in the behaviour of your brakes. So once completed, we recommend you file it away somewhere safe for future reference. That said, if you lose it, or if one wasn't completed when your installation was done, you can easily fill out another one at any time, and it'll have just as much value for future reference. So let's have a quick run through the checklist, and then we'll commission the system we've just installed on the van here. The checklist is broken into 3 sections: installation inspections, installation tests, and commissioning checks. The installation inspections are fairly self-explanatory, but they're important because they provide an opportunity to have one last look over the installation before we energise it for the first time. And that said, sometimes it's good for someone other than the installer to perform these inspections because it provides a second set of eyes over the installation and a bit of a sanity check for the installer. So running through each item, item 1, all wiring connected in accordance with the wiring diagram provided in the manual. So as I've said before, on the centre page of all of our manuals is the main wiring diagram for your system. We want to do one last inspection to make sure that everything is connected in accordance with this wiring diagram. Item 2, all wiring is secure and adequately protected from mechanical damage. So we want to be sure that the wiring isn't exposed to chafing or abrasion, and that as best we can we've protected it from sticks and stones that might be flicked up off the road surface. Item 3, all wiring connections are tight and secure. So in terms of our crimp connections, we want to make sure we can't pull the wire out of the connector after the crimp has been made. We also want to make sure that the blade connectors onto the brake monitoring unit are securely seated. And in terms of any soldered connections, we want to make sure that soldered connections have been wrapped in insulation tape or sleeved in heat shrink tubing as required to provide adequate insulation. Item 4, our monitoring unit is mounted in an appropriate location. So perhaps a bit late to be thinking about this, but we just want to be sure that the monitoring unit hasn't been installed on the underside of a chassis rail or somewhere where it's overly exposed to the risk of mechanical damage. Item 5, the monitoring unit fasteners are tight and secure. So obviously we want to be sure that all of the fasteners throughout the system have all been tightened and are secure. Item 6 relates to the polycarbonate enclosure. Now again, this may not be applicable to you. Again, our enclosures are really only required in extreme off-road applications, but if you have got a polycarbonate enclosure fitted, again, we want to make sure that all of the fasteners are tight and secure and that the nylon cable glands are also tight and secure. Item 7 relates to the polycarbonate enclosure too, that the lid gasket is fitted. So under the clear polycarbonate lid there is actually a gasket, and we want to make sure that that's been fitted, and again that the lid fasteners are secure. Item 8 relates to our Bluetooth transceiver module that has been mounted in an appropriate location. So again, our installation guidelines for the Bluetooth transceiver module state that the module needs to be installed on the front of the caravan or trailer and point in the direction of the towed vehicle. And item 9 again relates to our Bluetooth transceiver module, that it's nice and securely mounted. Running through our installation tests now. Item 1, the trailer plug is connected to your tow vehicle. So now we want to couple your caravan or trailer to your tow vehicle and connect the trailer plug connection so that when you put your foot on the brake pedal in the tow vehicle, you energise the electric brake system in your caravan or trailer. Item 2, the brake monitor app is installed on your mobile device. So in the previous video, we went through the process of downloading the brake monitor app from the App Store and installing it on your mobile device. Item 3, the LED on the Bluetooth transceiver module illuminates when you put your foot on the brake pedal. So on the bottom left-hand corner of your Bluetooth transceiver module is a small red LED. And when you put your foot on your brake pedal and energise the electric brake system, this LED should illuminate, and it indicates that the brake monitoring system is also energized. So if you put your foot on the brake pedal and this LED doesn't illuminate, it indicates you've got a problem and you'll need to check your wiring connections. Item 4. The monitoring device appears on the Brake Monitor app Connect screen when you put your foot on the brake pedal. So having a look at the main screen of our Brake Monitor app here, at the bottom of the main screen we've got two buttons, a connect button and a disconnect button. If I hit the connect button, it takes us to the connect screen, which displays all of the monitoring systems that are currently available for connection. So I've got my demonstration board set up on the desk here beside me today. If I just simulate putting my foot on the brake pedal, we can see that my demo board appears in the list here. Its current status is not connected. All I have to do is click on it. We're now connected to the demonstration board. The status has changed to connected. If we go back to the main screen, we can see we're now connected to my demo board. The wheel magnet current is indicated as 0 because my brake controller here is adjusted for minimum. But just to show you that it's working, if I adjust the brake controller, you can see the wheel magnet current's changing. The disconnect button allows us to disconnect from a system and connect to another system, which you might want to do if you've got multiple caravans or trailers or multiple monitoring systems. Again, the process is simple. We just hit disconnect to disconnect from this system, go to our connect screen, find the device that we're looking for, touch on it, we're connected, and now we're monitoring again. Item 6. The vehicle name and the vehicle type are configured in the Brake Monitor app settings screen. So looking at our main screen again, on the top right hand corner we've got an info button. If we just select that, it takes us to this screen, which is an info screen, and it tells us which device we're connected to and also gives us a numerical value of the signal strength coming out of that device. And at the bottom of this screen we've got another button for settings. So if we go into the settings screen, here we can give our brake monitoring system a unique name, and if you've got multiple vehicles, normally we would suggest using your registration number, but changing the name is a simple process. We just click on it, the keyboard comes up, we can change the name, hit done, and now we've given this monitoring system a unique name, so we know which system we're connected to. The other thing here is we can change the app setting for either a dual axle or a single axle. Although we've got a dual axle demonstration system here, we can still change it to single axle. If we go back to the main screen, again we can see that our name has changed, and this is what it would look like if you've got a single axle monitoring system. But just going back again, we do have a dual axle system here, so we just reset it for dual axle. The last button on this screen is a reset button, which allows you to reset the app totally back to default settings. So let's have a look at the commissioning checks now. So the commissioning checks are really the critical checks for establishing the baseline performance of your electric brake system. The first two checks relate to the Bluetooth signal strength, and these are important because if your Bluetooth signal isn't strong enough, your brake monitor app may appear to become unreliable. The second two checks relate to the electrical characteristics of your brake controller, your brake wiring, and your brake magnets. And these are important to ensure that your brake magnets are passing the correct amount of current and that you haven't got a problem with voltage drop or high resistance in any of your electrical circuits. But let's just quickly run through each one before we go and have a look at the vehicle outside. So item 1 is to record the Bluetooth signal strength using the Brake Monitor app when standing adjacent the driver's side door of the tow vehicle. And item 2 is to record the Bluetooth signal strength when sitting in the driver's seat of the tow vehicle. And these are assuming that you as the driver will be the one most commonly looking at the Brake Monitor app. But something to remember when you take these measurements is because Bluetooth falls within the 2.4 GHz frequency spectrum, the signal levels that you measure will be very much dependent on your surrounding environment. So if you park next to a building or a tree, you'll likely measure a higher signal strength than if you're out in an open area. So sometimes it can be good to repeat these measurements in a couple of different locations just to make sure that you do establish that valid baseline. And item 3. So we want to select manual mode on the brake controller in your car, and then we want to record the brake magnet currents using the Brake Monitor app for a range of gain settings on your brake controller from 0% to 25, 50%, 75 and 100%. So the intent of doing this is to establish a baseline for the current draw of each of your brake magnets in a cold condition, to check that the difference between the current draw on each magnet is less than about 0.2 of an amp, and to make sure that when our brake controller is set for maximum output or 100% gain, that we're seeing at least about 2 amps, ideally up to about 2.5 amps or more, flow through each brake magnet. Now if you've got more than about 0.2 of an amps difference between the magnets, or you're not seeing at least 2 amps of current flow through each magnet when your brake controller is set to maximum, it's possible you've got a voltage drop problem and it's something that should be investigated. Okay, let's have a look at the caravan outside. Okay, so I've been through all of my installation inspections. I'm happy that the system is installed correctly. I've now got my caravan coupled up to the car. I've got the trailer plug connected, and in my car I've got my brake controller set for manual and the electric brake system is energized. I've confirmed that on my transceiver module the LED is illuminated and that my brake monitoring system is also energized. So I can now come back to my mobile device. I've got my brake monitor app installed. We'll open the app and we'll attempt to connect to our monitoring system on the caravan. So we open to the connect screen. There's our monitoring system. We click on it, it's now connected. Back to the main screen, and great, we're now connected to the monitoring system on the caravan. So I'm standing outside the driver's door. The first commissioning check we want to do is to check the signal strength at this location. So if I go to the info screen, down here we can see the signal strength, and I can see that it's bouncing between about 55 and 65 dB. And that's normal, that's what we would expect to see when we commission vehicles here. Now I will say with the Bluetooth, it does hop between 3 frequency ranges. So you'll never see your signal strength as a very stable value. It will always tend to bounce around a little bit. But as I say, when we commission vehicles here, this is typically what we would see. The threshold for good reception, per our documentation and the system manual, is about 85 dB. Now, the signal strength is actually a negative number, so the bigger the number you see on the screen here, the lower the signal strength. So if you start to see numbers over and above about 85 or 90 dB, then you're on the edge of good reception, and the brake monitor app may start to cut in and out as you lose Bluetooth reception. But we're happy with that now, so I'll jump into the driver's seat and we'll go on with our commissioning. Okay, so I'm sitting in the driver's seat now. I can see that my signal level has dropped off maybe a couple of dB, but nothing too significant. And that's what I would expect, because there's very little obstruction between my position here and the Bluetooth transceiver module on the front of the caravan. Perhaps in your application you've got more obstruction and you would expect to see slightly more signal loss, but I'm happy with what I can see here. Let's have a look at the brake magnet currents. So my brake controller is energized and I've got the gain set for 0, and we can see the current readings 0.0 or 0.1 amps. If I wind my brake controller up to 25%, so I can see my brake magnet currents have come up. They're all reading 0.2 amps, all exactly the same, so that's great. We'll go up to 50%. Okay, so we're on 50% now. We can see they're all reading 1.4 amps. One's on 1.5, but they're within 0.2 of an amps of each other, so that's great. We'll go up to 75%. Okay, so we're now up to 2.1 amps. They're all reading the same, so again, that's great. We might see the current levels drop off a little bit as the surface charge is dissipated off my battery because I haven't got the engine running, but I'll take it up to 100% now. Okay, and we're on 100%. As I say, the surface charge off the battery is dissipated a bit, but we're reading 2.3, 2.4 amps on all magnets. So that's great, I'm happy with that. That's what we would expect to see. So I'll take it for a road test now, but otherwise I'll go and record all of my readings on the commissioning checklist, file it away for safekeeping, and we're done. In the next video I'll talk a little bit more about the brake monitor app and a few tips and tricks when you're interpreting the information displayed on the app.